Hi all, Dakota here, and here in the Ozarks, when summer rolls around, we've got chiggers and ticks on the mind. Fortunately, we also have solutions to the problem, and today I'm going to take you into the Ultimate Herbal Database and show you how to deal with these pests. Here we are in the Ultimate Herbal Database. Obviously, we're looking at chiggers. For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is on the right, the information panel, which can open all the way. On the left is the Plex, and if you scroll over the title in the middle, and that's what we're going to be looking at, often there is a photo of some kind that will pop up. That's what a chigger looks like. That is a larva. The adult chiggers don't bite people, just their little hungry larvae do. Now if you want to learn more about them, you can click on this. This is the type of creature it is. It's not an insect. It's actually an arthropod mite. Here's some information about their life cycle. And it turns out that they're most active in the late summer and fall. They're usually going to be found in this country in the south, central, and southeastern parts of the country. There are about 3,000 species of these trombiculid mites or chiggers found around the world, but in the United States there's really only one species that we're dealing with, and that's this Trombicula alfredugesi. The good news is that one does not appear to be a vector for diseases. In other parts of the world, though, there are species that do carry diseases like scrub typhus and possibly hantavirus, maybe Ehrlichia, maybe Borrelia. That's still being investigated. But if you're traveling, particularly to Africa, India, some parts of Australia, check out scrub typhus, because the chiggers that are found there can cause this, and that's something that you want to be aware of. Now let's move on to our chiggers. We've been told that they burrow into the skin, and so if you take some clear nail polish and wipe over them, it'll suffocate them. Well, that's not really the thing to do, because our mites or chiggers don't burrow into the skin, although in some parts of the world they do, but not here. Chiggers cluster together on tops of grass, leaves, other foliage, waiting for food to come by. They'll feed on birds, any kind of mammal, even lizards, and of course humans, but humans turn out not to be their favorite food. They'll let some humans pass by as undesirables. There's a condition, if you've ever been hit by chiggers, because they are gathered together in a colony, they're called mite islands. When you get chigger bites, you tend to get a lot of them. And there's a condition called trombiculiasis. That is a skin dermatitis. In the database, of course, you can come here and learn about that. But here's a picture of what they look like. That's a little colony of chiggers sitting on top of a stem. Once they get on you, they're going to look for areas where your skin is thin, and they do get caught up where clothing is constricted around your body. Here's a picture of a fellow who's been hit by a whole bunch of chigger bites, and you know that is one of the worst itches or pruritus that a person can have. The bites don't hurt at first at all. You don't even notice them, but a little while later you've got very, very severe itching. Here's what's happening when they bite us. They cut through the stratum corneum, and they destroy and necrotize tissue in the underlying connective tissue layer. Then they suck out lymphoid and epithelioid cellular liquid. Their feeding period on humans typically lasts from 3 to 8 hours to 1 to 2 days for our non-infectious chiggers. Okay, let's talk about prevention. When you go outside, it's a good idea to be fully clothed, which isn't enjoyable necessarily in the summer, but it is wise to do it when you can. The most effective deterrent spray does continue to be DEET, even though there seem to be some risks, health risks, to using it. It does turn out to be fairly safe, and it's a good idea to try to limit that spray to clothing. You can click on this link for insect repellents for more choices. Now, of course, not all insect repellents repel all insects. We're talking about things that work specifically on mites. In one study, coconut oil was more effective than DEET as a general insect repellent. An old-time favorite is the original Avon Skin So Soft lotion. That one's good for fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and chiggers. If you click on this link, it'll take you to where you can buy it. There's a natural PMD repellent made from lemon eucalyptus called citradiol. It's 50% more effective than synthetic PMD, and you can find the product in Care Plus Insect Repellent. Click on that link and you'll see where to get it. Another reliable preventative is flour of sulfur. Here you put your flour of sulfur in a sock and you use it like a powder puff and blot it around your shoes, socks, pants, and legs. Chiggers are related to spiders and ticks instead of insects like beetles or flies, and sulfur seems to work best on arthropods. Sulfur is irritating to the skin, eyes, and throat, so be careful when you're using it not to inhale it or get it on your skin. Wash your hands afterwards. Sulfur lasts all day, that's a big plus, and it is effective. And here's a study on tests of repellents against chiggers. I'm not going to go through all of that. Stuck outside without a repellent, that can happen. And this is rather tedious, but it works. What it requires you to do is every 15 minutes or so to rub your legs, your feet, if you're sitting on the grass, your butt, any part that could have been exposed, because in doing so, in a vigorous rubbing, you actually squish the larva. A hot soapy shower after you come in. That soap will deter the chiggers, they'll drop off, and you want to do that right away. Some people have talked about taking a bath with chlorine. While it's effective, chlorine is really not good to inhale or to have on your skin, so that would be a last resort. If you don't have soap and a hot shower, I suppose you could do it. Okay, remedies. What you want to do is treat the itching and the inflammation. If you're scratching a lot, you can get secondary bacterial infections, so you don't want to do that. However, if you've been bit by chiggers, you know that it's very difficult to resist scratching. So what I recommend is getting one of those soft bristle body brushes, or even those nail brushes that are soft bristles. And if you rub that instead of scratching with your fingernails, it does relieve the itching and it's not going to damage your skin. Take a cool shower or apply a cool compress. Take an oatmeal bath. And for instructions on that, you see this purple color. That's for preparations. Everything's color-coded in the database. An oatmeal bath is going to relieve the itching. You can use a topical antipruritic, that means anti-itching. Something containing camphor and menthol can help. I do like peppermint oil, peppermint essential oil. And then, of course, some people might want to use something commercial like Pramoxine. And for natural anesthetics, click on this link. It'll take you to that in the database. And here's a study that showed that clove oil is as effective as benzocaine as a topical anesthetic. Again, you want to be careful using it. Don't use that on children. See the cautions on using clove essential oil. And your doctors would probably prescribe a topical corticosteroid, and that can relieve itching, but the effect is delayed, and the bites often have to be occluded to provide relief. You want to be careful using topical corticosteroids because overuse can thin the skin. In Ayurveda, Google, not the search engine, but the herb, you click on that and it'll take you to the herb. It's a type of a myrrh tree. Contains a botanical steroid that's used in Ayurveda for insect bites and as an insect repellent. Now, occlusion temporarily can increase the itching sensation, but it's helpful in the long run. And what you do is you apply whatever topical steroid you're using, followed by plastic wrap and then ice on top. The cooling effect of the ice allows a lot of people to use occlusion therapy, where otherwise it would be intolerable. And then there are counter irritants, such as propylene glycol. Click on that one and it'll take you to that in the database. Deodorant sticks might contain it, and a lot of military personnel have carried deodorant sticks with them just to relieve the itch of chigger bites, and the soldiers attest to the symptomatic relief they obtain. They're readily available and transportable. There's a lotion with propylene glycol that repairs barrier skin function in dogs, and dogs really can suffer from chigger bites. There's more on that elsewhere. Sometimes people want to use oral antihistamines. That can help relieve the symptoms. And this link takes you in the database to our natural antihistamines. Then we've got some studies and articles here about natural remedies, how to know if it's a chigger bite. There can be misdiagnosis because other types of bites can have a similar effect. But usually if there are a lot of them clustered together, you can think it's chiggers. How to get rid of chiggers on dogs, very important. And a new study came out recently saying that chigger bites could trigger an allergy to red meat, which is very interesting. We know tick bites can do that. One of my favorites is chickweed salve. If you have chickweed growing around your area, you can make it yourself. But if you don't, there's a link to a brand here. It's incredibly useful for itching and healing. And then we've got a recipe here for a homemade do-it-yourself remedy. It's mixing a half teaspoon of dish soap with a 1/4 cup of pineapple juice. Add in a half teaspoon of tea tree oil or peppermint oil, stir them together for at least a minute, and add in a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Thoroughly stir it for several more minutes and use a Q-tip or cotton ball to spread it on your bite. There might be a slight burning sensation like icy hot, but that subsides once it dries on your skin. And then here's another recipe, mixing tea tree oil, meat tenderizer, cayenne pepper into a paste. And then, of course, about using a soft bristle body brush to scratch the itch. At the top up here, you see there's some tabs. When we click on those, you're going to have, this is like an internal browser, you're going to have a video or a PDF or a website come up that where you can get further information. Now down below here, you see some different remedies and other things that are associated with it, like the skin dermatitis. As far as the honey and the garlic bulb, those are mostly to help prevent infection. If someone has opened those wounds up, you're going to have to do something to keep infection from setting in. And young boys have a condition where, I don't know why this happens, but they can go for the penis. So if you have a young boy with a lot of bites and a swollen penis, think about chigger bites as being a possible cause. So now let's move on to ticks. Okay, so here we are in the section about ticks. If you look at this link up here, Tick Encounter Resource, if you click on that, it'll take you to this really good field guide to ticks. I'm just going to scroll through that so you can see here. You can see what kind of tick activity you can expect throughout the season. Now, often we think of them as being a problem mainly in the warmer months. However, it turns out that ticks can be active all year long, even in the winter. In fact, ticks have been found active in the Arctic, and then you can submit a tick to find out if it's carrying any diseases. So it's a good idea when you remove a tick to put it in a little jar and send it off to find out if you've been exposed. So let's go back to this. Now we've got some different videos here and articles. To kill ticks, target their animal hosts. Well, one thing that we do is we put sulfur blocks out for the deer, because deer are a major vector for ticks, and so sulfur blocks, the deer will lick on that and it helps them to resist the ticks. And an article about avoiding them. Obviously, it's the tick-borne diseases that we're concerned with here. This is a good article. The world's next major health threat could be of the domestic variety, ticks, and they are a huge health threat. I'm going to open this up all the way, and you see up here we've got some videos, and I'm going to play a little bit of these for you. Okay, this is part 1. Breathtaking Adventures of Ticks.
Ticks are blood-sucking parasites of many vertebrate species, which include your pets and yourself as well. They get attached to the host for a relatively long time and are able to carry and transmit dangerous diseases such as borreliosis, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, and similar arrangements of random letters plus osis. Also, their spit may contain paralysis-inducing toxins. On the positive side, they make stylish alternative beards if arranged correctly. So let's get to learn more about the breathtaking adventures of ticks and their calculated demise. This is part 1. Ticks are tiny arachnids. Arachnids are insect-like creatures best known for their 8 limbs, which make them highly sought-after church organists. Going further down the taxonomical chain, we soon get to the order of ticks, made up of roughly 900 species, quite impossible to discuss all of them, so we're going to focus on what are called hard ticks, as they are the most relevant for cats, dogs and their owners, and there aren't more of them than 700 species. The 700 species don't have the exact same anatomy, but they all share a basic common build. A gorgeous body, 4 pairs of legs, a head consisting mainly of brutal blood-sucking mouthparts, and a shield on their back called the scutum to protect them from flying concrete mixers. Who the hell knows? Anyway, it's larger on males but smaller on females, which allows the lady tick's body to freely expand when getting filled with blood. And expand it does. That ginormous greyish-brown wart with 8 tiny whiskers on your dog, you know, the one that might collapse into a black hole should it grow any larger, might actually be an engorged female tick. When not bursting with blood, ticks are only a few millimeter to half a centimeter long depending on species. But these are just the adults. Ticks have 3 more life stages. They start out as eggs, smaller than a millimeter, and they hatch as equally impressive larvae. Imagine yourself miniaturized and with fewer legs. That would be your larva version if you were a tick. Then they molt and become nymphs, somewhat larger and 8-legged. Adults arise after the second molt, have kinky sex that puts 50 Shades of Grey to shame, the female lays eggs, and the cycle starts all over again. To get a better grasp of the sizes of the various life stages, here they are placed on the thumb of a veterinary intern. Ticks require a blood meal for each molt and for reproduction. Some tick species have figured it out that it's pretty convenient to just stay on the same host for all 3 stages of development. Other tick species are stupid and look for a different host after each molt because it's, I don't know, posh. And there's a third group taking the path in the middle, using the same host as larvae and nymphs and a different one as adults. So there you have it. 1 host ticks, 2 host ticks and 3 host ticks. Host ticks. The whole cycle can take from a few months up to 3 years depending on tick species. What? Do they really spend years attached to the host? That's like having a permanent piercing that occasionally takes a shit. But no, the time ticks spend on the host is just days or weeks. The rest of those years they are just procrastinating in the grass, looking at crying Michael Jordan memes. But let's go into a bit more detail with the help of a typical 3-host tick. When not on the host, ticks are most comfortable in the moist and cool ground cover. How do they get there? We'll discuss that later. For now, let's follow them on their epic search for a suitable host. They climb up a grass blade and spectacularly wait. On each front leg they have what is called a Haller's organ, which is like a glorified nose that detects air currents, humidity, heat, carbon dioxide and ammonia, signs of a nearby host. Parasitologists thought it would be fitting to call waiting for a hug while doing absolutely jack shit, questing. Look, I'm questing.
Good luck.
Ticks are very sensitive to dehydration. Exposure to sunlight or dry air will force them back deep into the ground cover, where they'll absorb water that collects on them. They don't drink in a conventional manner. Once the weather is safe, they return to questing.
Oh, for f***'s sake.
But they can't go on doing this forever. So if no hosts ever walk by, ticks will use up all their resources and drop dead eventually. But thank God there's a shitload of them, so some always manage to survive by latching onto a host that brushes up against them. Once on the host, they go on a sightseeing tour checking out the major landmarks, looking for a less exposed, protected skin surface where they can hide from scratching paws, biting teeth and such. Should they succeed, they will slowly dig their elongated mouthparts into the surface, a painless process that in itself can take days before ingesting blood even begins. The piercing part, called the hypostome, is serrated on its bottom, and many tick species also release a glue-like substance around it to provide firm attachment. This is the equivalent of nail-gunning your face to the dinner table. Well, ticks take their feeding seriously. Female ticks tend to have one long bite lasting several days or even weeks, while males run around like headless chickens, stopping for multiple shorter meals. The males of some species barely even feed. But then, what's the point of all this exercise? This son of a gun is looking for a pretty tick girl to mate with. Once he finds his chosen one, he will climb her sexy mountain of an ass, bite onto it upside down and use his freaking face to load his sperm into her magical cavern of love. Typical first date stuff. The male will go on copulating with as many females as he can find until death puts an end to his passionate adventures. The females wait until their bellies are filled with blood, after which they carefully detach themselves and take a dive off the host into the unknown. What's this? A floor tile in Bob's kitchen?
Oh,
Unlucky. But if the tick happens to land on grass, it will crawl inside the ground cover and the most beautiful story of motherhood will unfold. Unless you kill them with fire! But let's leave something for the next part. There are still plenty more breathtaking adventures of ticks left to discuss. This is part 2. After the parasite leaves the host, weeks may go by while the female tick does nothing but patiently wait for all the blood in its belly to become digested, absorbed and used as raw material in the production of eggs. Those who had the pleasure of giving birth to twins will surely appreciate the effort that goes into delivering thousands of eggs one by one without anyone helpfully yelling "push, push" into your ears. A little less relatable is the act of inverting your face and rubbing your baby against it to give it a snotty wax coating. It's probably no wonder that by the time the tick is done with the last egg, it will have lost all its willpower to live and will die as an empty sack of misery. Well, as an upside, its profusely mourning children, thousands of them, are alive and kicking. The eggs hatch into six-legged larvae and start questing just like adult ticks do. They don't wander far off from the site of hatching. In fact, they often stay together and form Black Friday-like trampling, swearing, ass-in-face clumps of tick matter while questing. As a result, it's not uncommon that unsuspecting hosts end up with hundreds of tick larvae infesting them at the same time. The larvae quest at lower levels of the vegetation than adults do, which gives them better access to their preferred hosts, small mammals and reptiles. Their feeding habits are similar to those of adults, but being so tiny and not having to deal with relationships, good-for-nothing cheating husbands and divorce attorneys, they finish quicker than drop off and chill. This is a good time for them to molt and turn into nymphs under the protection of the ground cover. Then rinse and repeat. Questing medium height. Diet slightly bigger, not too large, but anything will do, I guess. Feeding time not too long, not too short, just nymphy. Loitering in the grass and molting about the same as before. When the nymphs transform, they turn into adults and we're back to square one. We discussed before that the duration of the cycle varies by tick species, but the weather and host availability also have a major influence on it. If it gets too cold or too hot for a prolonged time and no hosts are in sight, ticks can avoid death by slowing down their metabolism and entering a deep meditative state where you can draw vulgar images on their faces or duct tape them to the ceiling without them noticing. This state, called the diapause, is how they overwinter and get through the scorching summer months. 3-host ticks complete their life cycles in 2-3 years, but 1 year or 6-year extremes can occur as well. Peaks of tick activity are in spring and autumn, but whenever it's not freezing, ticks are there, waiting. But now, let's bust some myths.
Myth number 1.
Ticks fall from high places like trees or the International Space Station. No, they don't. They rarely venture higher in the vegetation than your knees. If you find one on your head, it's either because your head is below your knees or the tick has crawled up on you.
Myth number 2.
Winter is safe because ticks die in the winter. So are they magically resurrected every spring then? Of course they can survive the winter, they just need to be tucked away carefully in the ground cover, protected from frost. Also, if the winter is mild, they might even try some questing. That's how Sherlock got this huge tick in January. It happened in Australia, but that's a minor detail.
Myth number 3.
Ticks are easy to notice. Not really. Of course, an engorged female tick that's been sucking blood for 7 days is hard to miss. But remember this? Good luck finding a tiny nymph or a larva in a thick fur coat on a moonless night. So what harm does a tick do? It's a tiny little creature that only takes a minuscule amount of blood. You almost feel compelled to let it feed, play games with it, sing its songs, and let it go free when the time comes. Most of the time this would be justified and no one would think you're even slightly nuts. But sometimes, not always, ticks carry diseases. And that's bad news for those who get bitten, be it animals or people. There are quite a lot of infectious agents with various geographical distributions that ticks are capable of transmitting. This video is too short to discuss them all, but we're going to highlight a few more important ones. Lyme disease, caused by bacteria of the Borrelia genus, is probably the most widely known and widely spread tick-borne infection of humans. In animals, it takes a backseat. It can affect multiple organs in pets and people alike, such as the skin, the joints, the nervous system, and the heart. It's slightly worse than how you feel after an orc bachelor party. Tick-borne encephalitis virus, prevalent mostly in Europe and Asia, attacks your nervous system and gently cooks your brain. This can possibly kill you or leave you with lasting brain damage. Pets, however, don't even notice the infection. In the rare cases they do, it's almost always fatal. Babesiosis is present worldwide, but it's not caused by the same agent everywhere. It's more common in animals, but human infections occur as well. The tiny protozoa invade and blow up your red blood cells, causing anemia and making your thin, varnish-like blood particularly distasteful to vampires. It can be deadly if left unchecked, but asymptomatic infections are not uncommon. Ehrlichiosis and anaplasmosis are quite similar. The bacteria responsible are present all around the globe. They live inside various white blood cells of their victims and cause mischief, resulting in fever, muscle and joint aches, and sometimes neurological problems. However, it's possible to carry them without any symptoms. Like babesiosis, these two are more frequent in animals. Tick paralysis is the only tick-borne disease not caused by infectious agents. Some tick species have toxic spit capable of slowly paralyzing you as it gets absorbed through the bite wound. The process takes time, so you'll probably notice something odd like, I don't know, not being able to walk before you die of the paralysis of your breathing muscles. It can be helped if spotted early, so it's more of a problem in wild animals or large herds of livestock. But speaking of time, you're probably wondering just how fast ticks can transmit diseases once they bite you. Say if one attaches onto you on a Saturday morning, can you wait till Sunday evening to decide whether you want to remove it and go to work on Monday, or rather keep it and take out your sick leave? That depends. Generally speaking, tick-borne viruses are like, let's go, my pants are on fire, while bacteria and protozoa are more like, oh, I'll just finish smoking my pipe first and I'll wait till my son graduates from college. Under certain conditions, however, all types of pathogens can be transmitted surprisingly quickly. This means there's no true safe time to speak of at all. Sorry. But don't panic, it gives you wrinkles.
Okay, so how do we avoid these guys? Here is a short video, Avoiding Ticks. I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. It is really short.
Okay, so I'm here in the woods, and if I start going further, I'm going to find the ticks are out here. And what you can see is there's a problem with the way I'm dressed. Just want to see it. First thing I want to do is pull my pants up. And today I'm wearing cowboy boots. I'm going to tuck my pants down in my boots, and any bunching will be to the rear. All my pants will be tucked in. There, that's better. Now ticks get on. They're not going to be getting up my pant legs and up to me, and I will hopefully be able to see them.
So the moral of that story is whenever we're out in tick territory, wearing long pants that are tucked into boots is a very good idea, and that helps with chiggers as well. Now here's a good trick. Get yourself a roller, a lint roller with adhesive layers like that, and roll it frequently on your clothes, and you may find yourself picking up a bunch of ticks. We can make tick repellent sprays using essential oils, and that can be sprayed on your clothing and rubbed into your skin. It also works for mosquitoes and black flies. The problem with essential oils is they're volatile. That means that they evaporate into the air pretty quickly. This obviously is going to require frequent spraying. There are certain essential oils that have been shown to be very effective against ticks. Now when folks say that these sprays don't work, it's because they weren't spraying often enough. You really have to keep it up. So here is a simple blend. 4 ounces of carrier oil of your choice, 40 drops total of a blend of tick repelling essential oils. You blend all that together and put it into a spritzer bottle and spray periodically to your ankles, arms, etc. Now clove oil, again, can be used in outdoor diffusions where ticks are prominent, direct sprays, ground surface treatments, and diluted in topical prevention applications. Try 8 drops of clove essential oil per 1 ounce of coconut oil and apply throughout your body before hiking and spending time outdoors. Here are some essential oils that were tested against ticks. Now one of the best ones is this bourbon geranium essential oils, and some others. Let's go back. It's good to do a blend, but you've got yarrow essential oil. Now a lot of folks swear by just taking the yarrow plant and making a strong infusion of it and using that infusion as a spray. We've got rose geranium, that's good, oregano, red thyme, lemon eucalyptus, garlic essential oil, amyris is also very good, tansy, yarrow essential oil. And then some of the herbs, if you're out and about and you don't have anything, but you can find these herbs, you can crush them up in your hand and rub them on your skin. So it's kind of a first aid primitive skills technique to find American false pennyroyal. We have quite a bit of that in the Ozarks. I'm going to scroll over the picture. When you click on this, you'll get all kinds of information about this plant. It's very strong smelling. Wild marigold, wild thyme, and then of course the yarrow plant. So we've got the tick repellents. Now here's some information on tick repellent for dogs. And of course the dogs and cats can bring ticks into the house. So this is about preventing tick attachment to dogs using essential oils. A blanket drag field assay was used to compare attachment of ticks to blankets impregnated with one of either turmeric oil, DEET, orange oil, or excipient only. Those are the negative controls. That helped them determine which of those oils or sprays deterred the ticks. The percentage of dogs with ticks attached to legs or belly of dogs sprayed with turmeric oil suspension was much lower than that of ticks attached to the same areas of dogs sprayed with orange oil or unsprayed dogs. So think of turmeric oil for your spray for your pets, for your dogs in particular. And here's about turmeric essential oil. Now you can take that lint roller, and when your dog comes in the house, use the lint roller on them. But there's also a non-chemical tick repellent called a tick tag. There's a holistic herbal veterinarian who swears by it, says it's really helped her dogs, but she actually wears one herself when she goes outside and says that it's significantly reduced the number of ticks she's found on herself, and she's living in an area where there are a lot of ticks. Now, something else that's important to have is a tick kit. So let's go back to our main heading, ticks, and take a look at the tick kit. Now, you can go simple or you can make it more complex. A simple kit is just a pair of tweezers, alcohol swabs, a couple index cards or post-it notes, a Sharpie, and some clear tape tossed together in a Ziploc bag. There are tick tweezers or tick removal devices that are much more effective than using your fingers or a regular pair of tweezers to get a tick out safely. This one has a magnifier attached to it. Or a more complete kit, and here's a list of what's in that. A Sharpie to take notes, post-it notes. You're going to stick the tick onto the post-it note and save it in the freezer. Then you want big bandages, a tick removal device like the tick key, and then tweezers additionally, because some of the tick removal devices don't do a good job when the ticks are hidden in the hair, and tweezers could be necessary. Magnifying glass, because you may not be able, some of these ticks, like the seed ticks, are extremely small. It's hard to tell if they might be a freckle, a scab, or a piece of dirt. A headlamp, if you need to take them out at night, that can be helpful. Some bentonite clay or a drawing salve, that's optional, but it helps relieve the itchiness, and bentonite clay may draw out any pathogens the tick left behind. You can make an antimicrobial drawing salve. There's a recipe there if you click on that link, and it's similar to the bentonite clay. Andrographis tincture. Andrographis is an herbal immune booster, an antibiotic. You can use it like you would an antibiotic ointment like Neosporin, and you cover the tick bite in Andrographis, possibly also the drawing salve, and a roll of Scotch tape to tape the tick to your post-it note, and a bag to hold your kit. And then, of course, how to remove a tick is very important. You want to use fine-tip tweezers or your special tick tool to grasp the tick as close to the skin as you can. Pull upward with steady, even pressure. You don't want to twist or jerk the tick, because the mouth parts can break off and stay in the skin. That happens more if you're just using regular tweezers. Don't do things like using heat to make the tick detach or putting essential oils on it or anything, because what can happen is it'll back out, but it could regurgitate back into the skin. Then you tape the tick to an index card or post-it note, write date, time, and location, and if you're using index cards, if symptoms appear later, you can add that information to the card. And that can help the doctor determine the type of tick, number of days since the initial bite, etc. Clean the bite thoroughly with rubbing alcohol. You want to monitor the site and the patient closely. Symptoms aren't generally immediate, but can present in 3 to 30 days from the initial bite. Symptoms are often flu-like, fever, muscle aches, headache, or a bullseye rash. And by the way, you don't have to have a bullseye rash as an indicator for Lyme disease, and you don't have to have every symptom. These are dangerous misconceptions. Testing ticks is easy, and here's a site you can go to, the Tick Report, and follow instructions to receive your tick order form. Okay, so even though you have followed all these precautions, you may still get a tick bite. So let's go over here and click on tick bites. Here we've got some websites with articles. This is a good one from Chris Kressler. What to do about a tick bite. Just going to scroll down a little bit. Of course, we want to prevent them staying out of tall grass, using a repellent, checking for ticks. Check daily and thoroughly. Look behind your ears, under your fingernails, under your toenails, belly button, groin area, hairline, armpits. Check children before bed and nightly if they've been playing outside. And of course, watch those pets. And what to do afterwards. Now, we've kind of covered that already, but there's more here. And you want to watch out for the Lyme disease. Now, there are other diseases that can be transmitted, of course. It's not just Lyme. And here's some more on what to do. I'm going to click on Lyme real quickly because that's the one most people are concerned of, but there's also other diseases. Here, under Lyme prevention, that's something that just becomes kind of like a lifestyle in tick territory. I'd recommend you come to Lyme prevention here and read up on this, but I'll just tell you one of the things that I do. This was recommended by Buhner. He says the primary herb for prevention is astragalus. He recommends a minimum of 1,000 milligrams daily if you live in a Lyme endemic area. That keeps the immune markers high enough to prevent infection or to keep disease symptoms as minimal as possible. For new tick bites, he recommends taking astragalus, 3,000 milligrams daily for 30 days, 1,000 milligrams daily thereafter, indefinitely, and using a paste made of andrographis tincture mixed with green clay. The paste is applied on the tick bite area, and that can often prevent an active infection. Okay, so going back to our main heading, I think we're just about done. Diatomaceous earth is another heading. A lot of folks sprinkle that on the ground to reduce tick populations. I have mixed feelings about that because it's indiscriminate and it can kill a lot of beneficial insects. However, if it's a small area where children are playing, or if you have B&B and you've got guests that are going out on trails, you could limit diatomaceous earth to those areas. It helps. It's not 100%, but it does help. Of course, the Lone Star tick, that's one of our dangerous ones. And here's a section on weaponized ticks. So I'm not going to cover that right now, but I think we've gone over all of the important points for what to do about chiggers and ticks. So folks, remember to sign up for the Ultimate Herbal Database. Take care of yourselves, and if you have any questions or comments, come to our Facebook group, Herbal Knowledge Keepers, and chime in. Thank you so much for your time. Be safe. Bye-bye.